Lost campers, believe it or not. Alright, I think this is where we left off. Poetry pulled the cork out. What do you suppose? There was a letter in it, written by little Tom Till. It said, whoever finds this, please read the little printed track which tells about how to be saved and go to heaven, and write to me and tell me if you let Jesus come into your heart. Tom had signed his name to the letter and put his address right below it. The tract was one of those leaflets our Sunday school teacher had given us the Sunday before, telling us to pass them out to people. I certainly felt ashamed. I'd left mine in my room all week and forgotten him because I was thinking all the time about our camping trip. Poetry folded the letter carefully, wrapped the track around it, and pushed it back into the bottle, put the cork in good and tight, and with a very sober face, he threw it back into the creek. Then he turned to me and said, I think Tom Till ought to be invited to go with us on our camping trip. So do I said. We ran back towards the trailer to wait for Barry and the rest of the gang so we could talk it over with them. Let me take a little break here because this is the end of the chapter. All right, everybody still looks awake. Hot, hot, hot. Woo! That's the way we felt that 4th of July. Then came the 5th. Just as hot or hotter, but we felt fine and very cheerful because we'd soon be on our way up north. By 9 o'clock, we were packed and ready and had actually started. All of us felt like yelling hoorah when Barry Boylan's big black car with the beautiful silver-topped house trailer on behind gilded down the road across Sugar Creek Bridge and headed north towards the place where we were to camp for 2 whole weeks. Woohoo! Be a man, my dad said to me while I was still in the house just before leaving. He gave me a half hug, the way he always does when he likes me. Then Mom gave me a whole hug, and said, I never really thought about a half hug and a whole hug. I thought a hug was a hug, but I get it. Then Mom gave me a whole hug and said, yawning. No, said, don't forget you're a Christian, Billy boy. Then Dad came over and we had a big 3-cornered hug, which we were always having anyway, especially when I was smaller, while Mom and Dad were hugging me and each other. At the same time, I reached down and laid my hand on top of Charlotte Ann's head, making it a rectangular hug instead of a triangular one. Her little head was round and as soft as a rose petal. Do you have a New Testament? Mom asked. Yep, I said indifferently. And that was the last thing I said. But that little yep was a promise to read my Bible every day and to act like a Christian. There were 8 of us instead of 7 because little Tom Till got to go too, so there wasn't enough room for us all to ride in the car. 3 of us had to ride in the trailer, which was a lot of fun. We took turns, a different group of 3 every 50 miles, so that we all got a chance to ride in it. To ride in the trailer was sort of like riding in a train. Barry made us promise to sit still. It was dangerous not to, and if we got to cutting up, it might make the trailer sway and cause an accident. Oh, see, nowadays you're not even allowed to ride back in the trailer, just so you kiddos know. That's been done away with.
What's back in the trailer?
It's like a travel trailer. It would be like, it's like a motorhome in that it's got all of that stuff, but it doesn't have the motor part. It's just a trailer that has all of that stuff that you hook it up to your car or your truck or whatever. Yeah, it would be, who has one? All right, just imagine it's like the motorhome, only it's just a trailer. It doesn't have the motor.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll point one out to you if I see one. But I think you get the idea. But anyway, because it's a trailer, as far as I know, in the United States anyway, I don't know if every state has its own rules, but you're not allowed to actually ride in the trailer anymore when it's moving. But this was written a long time ago. It was great watching the telephone poles and trees go whizzing past and imagining all the fun that was ahead of us. Barry drove hard all day, and the road wound round and round with lakes or forests on either side nearly all afternoon of the first day. And still we weren't there. At 6 o'clock we stopped at a lakeside camp and pitched Poetry's tent and another one that we brought along. After supper, which was hot dogs and buns and fruit, the hot dogs being roasted over a campfire, we all played table tennis in a garage close by. Then, when our suppers had settled, we took a swim in the lake, which was only about 100 feet from camp. Wow, talk about cold water. We've been used to swimming in Sugar Creek, whose water in the summertime was almost hot. But the water of this lake was like ice water at first until we were used to it. Then it was great. So I guess it's kind of like, what's that lake we go to? Higgins? Is that the name of it? Higgins Lake? I was drawing a blank there for a little bit. Higgins. I think I remember that. From Higgins on, boy, now I'm really drawing the Magnum PI. The sun was still up, although pretty soon it'd go down. The tall trees were making long shadows on the clear blue water, and the little clouds in the east were purple and cream colored, like my mom's irises back home. Some of the clouds looked like the inch-high creamy foam on the top of our milk pail when Dad finished milking and is carrying the milk toward the house, with old Mixie Cat following along behind or running on ahead or rubbing against his legs and meowing for him to give her her supper. Boy, doesn't our cat do that? Oh my goodness. Begged like crazy for that milk. And then it was dark. We all put on our sweaters or coats, whichever we'd brought along. Barry stirred up the campfire so that the sparks shot up high, and the big yellow flames leaped like Circus's dad's dogs jumping up and down around a tree when there's a coon up there somewhere. I guess I never will forget that first night. Each one of us told a story, or rather, part of the same story, which Poetry said was a hash story because it had so many different things in it and was all mixed up. Big Jim started it, and then when he got to an interesting place, he stopped, and Poetry went on from there. Each of us made up his own part as he told it. By the time the story was finished, it was almost time for us to go to bed. Then Barry Boylan reached over to the... I wonder why he always uses his full name. Barry Boylan reached over to the campfire with his long stick and stirred up the sparks again, which looked like stars shooting up. We were all around the fire, half lying down and half sitting up, waiting for Barry to give us his special campfire talk, which we were to have every night, that being one of the reasons our parents wanted us to go on our camping trip. While Barry was talking, I looked across the fire to where little Tom Till was sitting. His red hair was combed, and his big blue eyes were looking at Barry's brown face, and maybe at the scar on his cheek, and I could tell that he thought Barry was greater even than Abraham Lincoln. I wished all the boys in the world could have heard what Barry said. It was the story of the prodigal son in the Bible whose father gave him lots of money and things, and instead of being sensible and saving his money, the boy took everything and started on a long trip. While he was in a far country, he got into trouble and lived a sinful life, spending all his money, just wasting it, and thinking about himself and being selfish. And all the time his dad was heavy-hearted back home because his boy had run away. Then one day the boy got a job feeding hogs. He got sadder and sadder and hungrier and hungrier. And lonesomer and lonesomer. He was so hungry that he could actually have eaten some of the big long pods of the carob tree which grew in that country and which were good for hog food, but not very good for boys. Although Barry said that in time of famine, even the people over there in that country used to eat them, making a kind of syrup out of the pulp. Boys, Barry said, the Heavenly Father has given each of you a wonderful body, strong and healthy, and a good mind. I hope not one of you will ever waste it by not taking care of it, that you'll never have any habits that'll waste your health or make your mind dirty, but you will be clean and strong. Keep your thoughts pure, like. Barry stopped talking for almost a minute, it seemed, before he finished that sentence. He pushed his stick into the fire once more, sending up a shower of sparks that looked like big raindrops going up instead of down. Then he started the sentence all over again. Keep your thoughts pure, like Jesus, who was God's only begotten Son. The Father in heaven never had to be ashamed of him. Things were quiet around the campfire after that until Poetry's squawky voice started to sing a new course that Sylvia's dad had taught us. Sylvia's dad, you know, is our new minister back home who likes kids. Sylvia is a girl in the 8th grade, and Big Jim is always especially polite to her. The course went like this. It's a grand... I turn the page here. Are you sleeping yet, buddy? I think we're going to end soon. It's a grand thing to be a Christian. It's a grand thing, I know. I know a different one that also says, isn't it grand to be a Christian? Isn't it grand? Anyway. And pretty soon we were all singing it together, none of us caring that Poetry's voice squawked or that Tom Till couldn't carry a tune very well. You could hear Circus's bell-like voice above all of ours, singing a kind of tenor. Well, it was time to go to bed, because tomorrow we would be there in a jiffy after we got to sleep. Because tomorrow would be there in a jiffy after we got to sleep, and we'd be off again, going still farther north. Barry and Little Jim and I slept in one tent. Poetry and Dragonfly were in Poetry's tent, and Circus and Big Jim and Little Tom Till were in the trailer. Oh, I said I was going to stop. You still awake, bud? I think he's gone. We're very close. We're in the trailer right there. Okay, have a good night, everyone. Love y'all.